I've always known that I've wanted to be a mother. This is not a desire that just started when I was old enough to be in childbearing age. I've just always known that I wanted to be a mother. I've always felt like I would make a great mother. And I just love me some babies. I love children, but like babies are my favorite. And I'm not going to sit up here and act as if I don't realize that babies grow into children, grow into teens, and grow into young adults and beyond. I love every phase, but when I say I have a special love for babies, I really do. And I just wanted to talk about some of the thoughts on where this desire comes from, what that looks like with me turning 38 this year and not having children yet and not currently being in a relationship, and just where we are when it comes to the imaging, the messaging, and the reality of motherhood in 2026. Let's just start with childhood, of course. For one, I was never into Barbie dolls, never into Bratz dolls, which came further along in my childhood. I love me a baby doll. I collected baby dolls. I would get baby dolls whenever they came out. I had the baby alive. I had the baby tumbles a lot. I had random baby dolls. Here's one of my childhood baby dolls right here. My father would always purchase me these African dolls every year at Juneteenth or the Black Arts Festival in Denver. I don't know who makes them. I have a collection of these, and then there's some more statuesque type dolls. But I have a whole collection of these African baby dolls, and they have their dresses with their matching head wraps and earrings. Of course, a baby wouldn't be wearing these, but this is my tangible proof that I have been a collector of baby dolls since I was a baby girl. And when I think about it, I was playing with dolls, I think, up until seventh grade. That is my memory of it. I know I have a picture on my 10th birthday holding some new dolls I will insert. And I remember having a baby doll in the seventh grade because I would pretend that it was my baby and I named her after my crush. I had a crush on a Mexican boy named Ruben, and our baby girl was named Ruby. When I tell you, I would just be in my own world, pretending that these were my babies and nurturing them, feeding them, changing them, holding them, caring for them. And I just really desired to be a mother one day. Whenever there was a baby in the family or friends or neighbors, I want to hold the baby. It would really hurt my feelings when older family members would tell me that I couldn't hold the baby because I knew that I was capable of holding babies and taking care of babies. But some people didn't trust me, felt like I was too young or didn't have the skills because I didn't have younger siblings to be able to manage a baby. And it would really hurt my feelings. Like, I'm smiling about it, but as a child, whenever I would hear, "Oh, don't let Asha hold her," or "No, you can't hold her," it really hurt my feelings real bad. And it's interesting because when I got older and my cousins started having children, I was usually the go-to person to watch the babies because I would never say no. But one of the things that I would do while other children my age were probably watching cartoons and animation, I would watch some cartoons, but I was really a sitcom girly. But another thing that I would watch were programs like A Baby Story. They used to come on TLC. Baby, I would binge watch A Baby Story. I love seeing the whole process of the mother being pregnant and going to her appointments and preparing for labor and delivery and bringing the baby home. I just loved it. It wasn't just me wanting to be a mom, but also it sparked my desire to actually work with moms and babies as a career. Eventually, I started saying that I wanted to be a pediatrician to work with children, but I didn't really like school like that. So I changed it to pediatric nurse. But during my clinicals, because I was an LPN for 10 years, during my clinicals, I just thought that because in Colorado, there weren't a lot of LPNs that worked in the hospital space. It was either you worked in long term care or clinic. And I didn't even think about clinic for whatever reason at that point of time. I thought that my dreams of being a pediatric nurse were not possible unless I became an RN. But my favorite clinical was the OB clinical. We weren't able to watch a birth or a C section because they had kind of change the rules around by the time I came through my program. But we were able to do triage for the moms coming in labor, and we were able to do the mom baby clinical rotation in the OB. So after they have the baby, honey, they was trying to get me to put my first catheter in a woman that had just delivered. I was so thankful that she declined. Thank you. But what I did enjoy was not only being able to work with the babies, which I absolutely loved, but also being able to work with the moms. I've always had just a love for pregnant women. Like, I just think they are the most beautiful, beautiful thing. Like, you're just embodying this miracle. And I just always wanted to help them and nurture them and be there for them and hold space for them. And so being there for them after they've given birth, and also being there for the entire family. Two of my fondest memories during my OB clinicals were helping a new father. He wasn't a new father. They had a son, but this was their first daughter. And he did not know how to change baby girl's diaper. He was very insecure about it and frustrated. And I taught him how to wipe front to back and how to properly change the baby girl's diaper, and it took some stress off of him. And another moment that I remember is going into the room of a lady that had just had a big old 10-pound baby. He was so cute. And she was crying. He was crying. She was frustrated. She was trying to tap his back to get him to calm down. And I was able to hold him for a moment and get him to calm down and allow her the time to calm down. And I felt so just rewarded to be able to do that. I also really love educating and supporting women with breastfeeding and just all the aftercare when it comes to taking care of a baby and taking care of themselves. Like, just thinking about it right now, it's just something that brings joy to my life. And so I did end up becoming a pediatric nurse about 5 years into being an LPN, working at a clinic, because I never even considered it. And then I'm like, oh, duh, I could work in pediatrics at a clinic, which I did. And we worked with newborn to 21 years of age. And it was a beautiful career. I loved it. I got to hold babies every day. I got to educate families. I got to support parents and children with their needs. And it was beautiful. Before I moved to Georgia, while I was in Colorado, I discovered the career of being a doula. Honestly, I don't know who put me on, how I heard about it, what sparked the interest, but I found out about labor doulas. And I remembered my experience in OB and how rewarding that was and how much I loved it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get certified as a labor doula. So I did go through a labor doula program, and I got all the education. I ordered the books, but you can actually practice as a labor doula without becoming certified, just like you can be a life coach without being certified. But I wanted the certification, but it was a lot going on trying to do that. And I think I was newly married and or going through a divorce, one of the two. So I didn't finish my certification, which would have required me reading 5 books. I think I read 1 out of the 5. It would have required me to go through a certain amount of births and get feedback from the mom and the doctor and maybe the nursing staff, and then do some tests and different things. So I didn't go through the whole certification process, but I took the program, and then I did an advanced doula class where we were doing things like playing with placentas, learning about encapsulating placentas, and just getting a little bit more advanced technique and education on being a labor doula. The first birth that I was able to be a doula for, one of my coworkers, she asked me to be her doula, and I said absolutely. She called me in the middle of the night one night and said she was in labor, and we had a plan and everything. And one of the issues that she had was her spouse, her partner. She felt like he wasn't very supportive during her first birth. She felt unsupported, rushed, and she felt a lot of shame being put on her because she wasn't having a successful vaginal delivery. And she felt like the nursing staff and the doctors didn't give her enough time and space to have a successful vaginal delivery. So that was something that was very important for her during her birth, was to make sure that her partner did not stress her out and also give her the allotted time to be able to have this baby. I showed up in the middle of the night. I got there, I comforted her, I massaged her. I used my techniques on, how to kind of support her through her contractions. I supported her partner as well and made sure that he was not stressing her the hell out. And I made sure that her plan was in place. She ended up not only having a vaginal delivery, but she had a VBAC naturally. She did not have to have a cesarean. She did not have to have an epidural. She had her baby on her knees, squatting or straddling the bed backwards. The baby was caught from the back as the sun rose. And it was one of the most beautiful and rewarding experiences. And she was so grateful. And I was so grateful for her to trust me to be there with her as well. The baby was so adorable. And then I went and visited her and her baby and her older son that she already had after that. Another one of the births that I attended as a doula was my cousin. She asked me to be her doula pretty early in her pregnancy because I was there for her anyway, supporting her through her pregnancy, being there. I gifted her a beautiful photo shoot, maternity photo shoot for her. And we just talked about what she wanted when she was going to have her baby. And because I was so supportive throughout her pregnancy, she also made my baby cousin my godson as well. She called me in the middle of the night too, but because we cousins, I had just got back from the club, hunty. I was tipsy. I said, let me take a quick nap and I'm coming to pick you up. So I took a little cat nap. I got up, I went and picked her up. We went to the hospital. Everything was going as planned. She was having her contractions. I was timing them. I was supporting her through the early stages of labor. But something changed, and all of a sudden her early stage of labor started having signs of distress. She was in too much pain too early. And I know that contractions are painful, but the type of pain that she was experiencing was alarming. And so I ended up having to call nursing staff to come check her. They checked the machines. They ended up checking, the bed. She was spotting. And unfortunately, she had to be wheeled into an emergency cesarean. And because it was emergency, it wasn't planned. Although I was the only person there at the time, I was not allowed into the room. And I really don't like the way they did my cousin too, because they wheeled her into a recovery room. They didn't put nothing on the board, a sign. They didn't have anybody there for her when she woke up. They called me to come see the baby. I was the first one outside of the staff that laid eyes on him. But when she woke up, she was in an empty room by herself with no baby, not knowing what happened. I definitely feel like they could have done better with communicating that her baby was fine and that she was fine, putting a note on the whiteboard or calling me in there to be there when she woke up. By the time they called me, I saw the baby, and then other family members arrived shortly after that, and I greeted them. So, healthcare, Black women, we all know the deal. I will say that moments like this just really came full circle for me as far as how I always wanted to be a mother, how I always wanted to work with babies, how I always wanted to help nurture the mothers and the whole family unit. And I can say that I have experienced that in some of my career choices and paths. I didn't continue on as a labor doula. I did try to do it a little bit while I was just transitioning from Colorado to Georgia. I thought about being a postpartum doula, which gives you that opportunity to be more with the mom baby couplet, which I think would be more of my speed anyway. I've definitely explored some career paths that allowed me to educate, support, and be around the babies, the mamas, and the families. And I probably will circle back to those areas of my life in some type of capacity eventually. So if you follow me on any of my platforms, you know that I'm currently writing a book. And in that book, I'm going to be sharing some of the good and the bad and the ugly of some of the narratives and experiences I've had surrounding motherhood in my life. But I will say now that I did end up being with a man and then marrying him, and he had 8 children. And so I did experience motherhood from a stepmother, bonus mom perspective for several years. They weren't babies when I came around or when I was really involved in their lives. They were elementary aged. And that experience was one of the best times of my life. I really enjoyed connecting with them and nurturing them and being a part of their upbringing. That experience taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about my own personal childhood wounds and childhood upbringing and the patterns that I was bringing from my childhood into how I parented and what I liked and what I didn't like and what I kept and what I didn't keep. So I did have that experience, and I still talk to some of my stepchildren to this day. Not as much as I would like, but keeping up with what they have going on. And they're young adults now. So it's beautiful to know that I've had some type of impact and influence and inclusion into the upbringing of some little people. Now, my mother had me when she was 22 years old. I always thought by the time I was that age, I would also be a mom. I just thought that that was a great age, even though looking back at it, that was a very young age. 22 was the age that I got married. And when I tell you around that time before and immediately after getting married, I wanted a baby so bad. And yes, it didn't make no sense to be the seventh baby mama and the mother of the ninth child. It's silly as hell when I think back on it. But at that time, could nobody tell me nothing. I got mad at my cousin for keeping it real with me and saying, like, is that what you really want? And she didn't tell me that when things were going well in my marriage. It was when things were rocky. And I still was like, I want a baby. I don't care about him. She's like, girl, you tripping. And I really got mad at her. And I'm sorry, girl. I've apologized to her since then. Oh, I wanted to be a mama so bad. Like, I had my bonus children, but I really wanted to experience pregnancy, having a delivery, having a baby. It was just one of my top priorities. Me and my ex, we did not really try very long because by the time I got off birth control and we actually were not preventing pregnancy, it was like the beginning of the end of our marriage. The relationship that I had after my marriage was with a man who had a vasectomy. So we talked about wanting kids together. We even looked into him getting his vasectomy reversed. But thankfully, the relationship didn't last long enough for us to do all of those things. God be looking out for me. My ancestors and my spirit guides and my angels, they got me. They know when it's not supposed to be. Okay. They protect me. Since then, I haven't been in very many relationships that I would even want to have a child with someone. I had a recent relationship that I thought would blossom into the possibility of marriage and children, but that didn't work out. And now I'm back single again. I'm single again. I ain't back on the prowl yet, but I'm about to be 38 years old, Lord willing, in July. And I am grateful for my mindset around motherhood now because it's nowhere near what it was like when I was in my early 20s. In my early 20s, as I've already mentioned, I really, 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 really wanted to be a mother. And it was my priority. It wasn't really an obsession, but it was definitely a strong desire. After my divorce and into my mid to late 20s, I was a little bit more lax about the idea of being a mother because one thing about me is I want to make the right choice for the father as best as I can. I know things happen, but I'm very intentional about who I bring children into this world by. And I was really kind of just lax and chill. Like I'm, single after not being single for over 8 years. I'm not tripping about having nobody's child right now. I'm outside and not outside like that, but just having fun, traveling, exploring, being a young woman. In my early 30s, I think I revisited that panic, that urgency, that internal biological clock started ticking louder and louder and louder and louder. And it wasn't just coming from inside, it was also pressure from outside, from family members always coming to me asking, when you having a baby? Where's your man? You don't want kids? Literally coming to having a heart to heart discussion with me. And I'm like, okay, yes, I want kids and I want a family, but I'm not going to do it with just anybody. Do you know how insensitive it can be sometimes when those are one of your strong desires or some of your strong desires and it's not happening in the time that you want it and you constantly having people judge you, pressure you, or shame you because you haven't done it yet. So you have this outside judgment and pressure going on. So this really became something that was sad for me in the early part of my 30s because I wasn't really finding someone that I could really lock in with. And I just felt like, damn, everybody says 35, geriatric pregnancy, complications, other situations that was going on with my own personal fertility journey that made me a little concerned about whether or not it was in the cards for me. And I got to the point where I was just like, you know what? I got to the point where the sadness turned into feeling defeated and feeling a little bit, I don't know if I would consider it pessimistic or optimistic or realistic, that motherhood might not be in the cards for me. I would say pessimistic because knowing that that's what I really wanted, it can seem a little pessimistic. I would say optimistic because it's almost like freeing myself of this pressure. Like it might not be in the cards for me, and that's okay. Or I have to accept it. Or just plain old realistic that if I'm not finding the person that I want to have children with, and if it doesn't make sense for me, I'm making the choice to not do it, and I will be okay. I really had to shift my mindset around motherhood in my 30s. For one, I spent 5.5 years abstinent, and it really gave me enough time to really have insight on what do I actually want? What are my standards? What are my desires? What are my goals in my life? And is this as important to me as it always has been? And the answer is yes, but for different reasons. Like, I do desire to have a family one day and to birth beautiful, healthy children and raise them with my partner, my husband. But I'm no longer in a rush. I don't feel rushed. I know that there are women, Black women, who have healthy, wonderful, beautiful pregnancies and babies in their 40s. And although I would love to get started before I'm 40, if it doesn't happen for me in that time frame, I'm okay with that. I'm not rushing to be a mom because honestly, I enjoy being child free as well. I enjoy the freedom. I enjoy being able to wake up when I want to wake up, not having these extra responsibilities and the anxiety that comes along with motherhood. And although I've learned to take the pressure off myself, accept the realities of things, and be okay with whatever life deals me when it comes to motherhood, deep down inside, I'm still that little girl that played with dolls, that wants to be a mother, and I still have hope. So tell me, ladies that were born in the 80s and 90s, where you at with it? What's your thoughts on motherhood? I'll talk to y'all later.